Now that we've talked about Java factory methods and intermediate operations, it's time to turn our attention to the end of the chain, the end of the road, if you will, which are the terminal operations. And we'll be talking about the structure and functionality of Java Stream's terminal operations, the purpose of which, of course, is to terminate the stream, like the Terminator. The operations we're going to be describing here apply to both sequential and parallel streams, which is pretty cool. So once you learn them for one purpose, for one configuration, they work just as well in the other. We will continue to showcase our simple search stream program. That's the one that searches for keywords in the lyrics to the Do Re Mi song. So just to recap, every stream finishes with a terminal operation that yields a non-stream result. And so here's a very simple example using the forEach terminal operation, which we've used before in our Hamlet character capitalization and sorting program, which you can find in repository folder EX12 in my GitHub repository. So that just basically terminates that stream, and we'll print out all the characters in Hamlet that start with the letter H. Remember, there can only be one terminal operation, and there must be one, otherwise the stream doesn't run. There's a couple of different types of terminal operations. One type of terminal operation will not return any value whatsoever. That would be the forEach and the forEach ordered operations. We'll talk more about those later. Here's the simple example we just looked at, where we're going to print out each element by passing in a side effect bearing method reference, which will print the result. There's other terminal operations that yield the results of a reduction operation. So these would be things like collect and reduce. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about collect. Collect is a very important terminal operation in streams. And collect and reduce work seamlessly with parallel and sequential streams, which again is very reassuring because you don't have to learn a totally different set of things depending on whether you're doing things concurrently or not. And then another type of terminal operation is one that will yield an optional or a Boolean value. And so there's methods like find any, find first, none match, and so on. These are all terminal operations that are so-called short-circuiting, which means that once they either match or don't match, or once they find what they're looking for, then the stream will effectively shut down, which is good. It's a way to optimize things. You'll need to learn how to use the find first method in order to implement assignment 1A. Hopefully that's not too complicated. Terminal operations have another purpose as well. They are what trigger the processing of all the intermediate operations, which are lazy. So they don't do anything. Nothing runs at all until the terminal operation is hit. And then interesting things happen. And when we come back in just a bit and talk about the internals of streams, how streams works under the hood, you'll see why that's the case. You'll see why the terminal operation is what sets all the wheels in motion. And it has to do with the way that the streams framework is actually constructed dynamically as the code is running. And so the little fluent chain of methods that you will be calling in your stream are actually building up an internal data structure, which is basically a linked list, a doubly linked list or whatever, of the intermediate operations. And when the terminal operation is reached, then that will trigger the data to be pulled through that linked list of intermediate operations. And we'll talk a bit more about that when we get into the internal details. So that's a very quick overview of terminal operations. The key things to remember about terminal operations: you can only have one of them. And if you want your stream to run, you must have one of them. And terminal operations don't return streams. They either return no values at all, like forEach. They return the results of a reduction operation, like reduce or collect, or they return Boolean or optional values saying that they've either found something or failed to find something or failed to match. And that can then be used to short circuit the stream so that it will exit at that point.